Hi, my name's Max Ozenberger, and I'm thrilled today to talk to you about ArcGIS Dashboards. But before we dive into it, have you ever seen a room that looks something like this when giving a presentation? People not paying attention, maybe working on something else, looking at their cell phones. Even in our virtual world, we can still tell when people are not paying attention to us while we're presenting. So I think that there are two key points to keeping people engaged, and that's keeping their eyes interested and keeping the story interesting. Let me show you two different ways of presenting GIS data, and we can try to decide which one of these is more engaging. This is your typical web map in an ArcGIS online portal, looking at COVID-19 cases in Texas. An obviously topical subject, so you would think that it would be intriguing to everyone. But if I wanted to show this to my leadership, I would have to click around on the map. So here's Cameron County, one of the counties I want to focus on because it has a very high case rate. But to find that out, I have to scroll through this pop-up of all the data. There we go. There's the confirmed case counts. And then all this other superfluous data doesn't need to be here. There's also nothing in this map for me to really interact with and tell the story that I want to tell. So instead, I'll just have to drone on about how these pieces of data are important. And, if we were in the room together and I was showing this, I think this is when I would start to see those heads nod off or phone screens light up as they got bored. So now let's move over to our dashboard using the same data that we were just looking at. Now I can interact with it better. So we can quickly see down here on these charts that Cameron County is in both the highest incidence rate and the highest case counts. I can click on the chart as well to quickly see our indicators on the left here update and show that we have 23,000 cases in the county total. And then we can search our list of testing sites up here, find Cameron County, and quickly see some color-coded indicators for what's going on with this testing site. We stylize these with Arcade, and that we can quickly tell that it has an extremely high social vulnerability and a high hurricane risk in this area as well. So now if I want my leadership to actually take action based off of this information, all this is laid out for them right here. And most importantly, I'll hope you'll agree that this is more engaging than that previous web map. There have been a ton of great dashboards made this year. Obviously, a lot of them circling around this coronavirus pandemic. Let me show you one of the most popular dashboards ever made. This is the Johns Hopkins University Coronavirus Research Center dashboard. This was recently named one of Time Magazine's top 100 new inventions for the year. Specifically, they called it 2020's go-to data source. Pretty amazing. Billions of people have viewed this dashboard because it's easy to quickly see trends and statistics of coronavirus for whatever area you want. We can quickly select the United States, and then over here on the bottom right, we can see the daily case chart change. Then go into my home state of Virginia on the second tab, and I can also get all the info that I need about coronavirus in Virginia, including case counts and death counts. I think that these dashboards are far better for analyzing and decision making than a web map. If the Johns Hopkins data was in a web map, it would be completely inaccessible, and I'm sure would not have gotten that same attention that it did. So what's great about all of this is that it may seem complicated, but really this is just drag and drop functionality to build your own dashboard with only very minor coding required, if at all. So hopefully that gave you a good brief look at dashboards, but let's talk some specifics. If you want to access ArcGIS Dashboards, the application is available on every ArcGIS online subscription and is included in Enterprise versions 10.6 or later. An important part of nearly all Esri software is bringing all these pieces of GIS together. Dashboards work with our platform, not against it. So bringing in any real-time data from GeoEvent or any data from your GIS server, even things like RSS feeds and CSVs, whatever you can put into your web map essentially, those can work inside of your dashboard as well. And all of the widgets that are natively within dashboards will also cooperate with that. So now dashboards are not without their challenges. I know I've been making it sound rosy so far, but making a good user experience is a real challenge. You have to balance the functionality with usability. Basically, you could throw 100 different widgets inside of that dashboard, sure, but if you do that, I can guarantee that no one's going to really want to use it. It'll be too complicated. There's just too much in there. So make sure to really focus on your user experience. We also have to consider what we're using this dashboard for. The scope of the dashboard has to meet the objective. There's no need to make a dashboard where you're getting into the details of an operation if you really want to show high-level info to your leadership. That in mind, you may need to create more than one dashboard if you do have separate audiences. So make sure to ask, what will this dashboard be used for, and understand their technological skill level before you start building it. So to summarize here, we really just need to know our audience. We need to be able to express all of this messy GIS information clearly and accurately, and we need to focus our audience's attention to where it's really needed. If you can do those three things, then your dashboard's looking like it's in a very good spot. Turning our focus back to the actual tech side of things, let's start building our dashboard from the ground up. The web map is the base piece that you will build your dashboard off of. It will set the tone for the dashboard, so you have to spend some time here deciding on colors, pop-ups, which data or layers are important. The pop-ups are very important for your clicks as well, as they'll persist into the dashboard. Arcade and attribute expressions are great for leveraging this. Let me show you what I mean. So here I am back in my web map, and what I want to do is for our testing sites here, I want to know exactly what the hurricane risk is and what the flood risk is. And I want to symbolize that. I want to show that if it's low, as you can see right here, that's a good thing. So we want to color it green. And if it's medium, I want it to be colored yellow and high red. So to do this, all you have to do is go into site selection here, which is that same point layer, and go to configure pop-up. Down here, you'll see attribute expressions. These are where we can insert our arcade. So I'll click on add, and a custom coding window will come up. So what I want to do right here is find that feature flood risk, and then if the text equals low, we return the color code for green. So that's going to look like this, and you can kind of just read it out. So if feature flood risk is low, we return this color code. Okay, it makes sense. And if I actually click test up here, you'll see that it actually returns that color code exactly like we want. So let me go ahead and put in here real quick the other two categories here for medium and high. And then we can quickly save this. And now let's insert it into our pop-up. So right now we have that just list of attributes. We need to go in here and just put in a custom attribute display. We'll click configure, and it'll bring up this kind of rich text editing window. I'm going to go ahead and go into the HTML here. And all we're going to do is we're going to create a span with that flood risk inside of it, with that expression inside of it as well. So you see that in my style right here, I have the color and then equal to that expression that we just made. So what that means is that the color is going to be that color code that we assign to it. We can go back here and then just type in flood risk as a label, and let's make it a little bigger. Let's make this, let's say medium. Great. I'm going to click OK. It'll save everything. And now you can see that my flood risk is now low, and it saves that in there and it colors it appropriately. I can also go right here to Galveston District, and we can see that the flood risk is high, and so it colors it red. So I know that this is working properly. So that returns some simple color codes and stuff, but Arcade can actually do even more than that. Let's do some of everybody's favorite, some math, and I'm just joking, by the way, we're not doing anything crazy with math. But I need to calculate the actual social vulnerability in our pop-up here as well, so that we know how vulnerable that population is. And this can be important in decision making. So right now, inside of the attributes, we have a percentile. And a percentile is good, but it doesn't show us that exact percentage number that we want. So to format it, we could put something like this in here, where I have that feature selected, and we round it up and create it so that it's a nice looking thing. So if I test it here, you'll see it returns, instead of a percentile of 0.94, it returns 94.9. So we'll click OK. And we'll throw this into that same pop-up as well. So now I can just put in social vulnerability, and then we'll go ahead and just click on this plus button right here. Instead of going into the HTML, we'll scroll all the way down and you'll see our custom expression that we made right there. So we can just throw that in. Let's also make this medium. Click OK, save it all. And now if we click on this, you see that our social vulnerability is now formatted properly inside of there. So we also don't need to mess around with Arcade if we don't need to. So this is just some basic web map stuff, but let's say for these counties as well, I still don't need all of this, but I don't need to do anything fancy with Arcade either. I just want to see the incidence rate and that's it, for example. So we can just go into this configure pop-up again, and instead of messing with attribute expressions, we can just go to our custom attribute display, click configure, and just pop it in here. So we'll type in incidence rate, and then through that same plus button right here, I can find the incidence rate. Let's see, somewhere around here. There we go. And then just stylize it with absolutely no coding. So we'll give it a nice font and make it medium as well. Click OK. And now you can see for every single county now, we just get that incidence rate with no other superfluous information inside of here. And like I mentioned before, this will translate over to our dashboard. So all of these pop-ups will also be inside of that dashboard in the finalized application. Great, so now we've got our web map looking good, and we can get into the actual meat of this, the actual dashboards. But before we get there, I just want to hit again, just to keep it simple. There's a lot that you can throw into a dashboard, but for our user experience, we need to keep things fairly understandable for our users. And I think that this is a great example to kind of visualize that. So on the left here, we have a remote control that's just got a few buttons and it might not have all the functionality that we need. Whereas on the far right, we have a remote control that's just too much. Like it would take me a few months to even get used to using that. And then in the middle, we have our Goldilocks zone, where it has the right amount of functionality and, it's not too complicated. So those dashboards kind of correspond with them. On the left, there's barely anything inside of there, so is a dashboard really necessary? And on the far right, looking at it makes my head hurt. There's no way that you could look at that and understand all those different pie charts. So that middle Goldilocks zone is really what we're aiming for here. And there's a lot of different elements that you can throw into these dashboards. Here you can see most of them, and we're going to touch on a lot of these, but once again, you do not need all of them. If you can get by and hit your objective with just a serial chart and some indicators, that's fantastic. So let's actually get into building some of this. So there's actually two different ways to get in and start creating your dashboard. One of them is through a web map like this. There's a share button right here. And if I click on this, you might notice that this is just your normal who can see what settings, but we also have this create a web app button. If I click here, it'll bring up all of our different configurable apps. We can also make a web app builder, but we can also make a dashboard right from here. So all I have to do is change my title, tag, summary, and click done and it'll create this dashboard for me directly from the web map. However, there's a caveat here that this is only the ArcGIS dashboard released version, not the beta. So if I want to get into the ArcGIS dashboards beta, I need to go back to my portal homepage, click on the dots up here, and then you'll find the dashboard beta here. This will bring you into the interface where you can then create a dashboard and start editing others as well. Let's actually edit a dashboard that I've already started up. You can see here if I click on the edit button, I already have my map loaded in here, and that's about it so far. So let's build it up. Up here on the top, you'll see this plus button, and this is where you actually access all of those different widgets and cards. So the first thing I might want in here is a header, an actual title for my dashboard. If I click on this, it brings up all of these options, and you'll notice that this interface is very similar for all of the different widgets and cards. I can quickly select a large or a small one. I like small. It defaults to the dashboard title, which is fine in this case. I can even add stuff like an icon. If I want this to be, something like this heart, it'll instantly add that in there for you. And maybe we can even change it to just a nice white color. You can also put in your own custom background image URLs here, and even things like menu links or any custom links that you throw in there. So now I'll click done, and my header is now added into here exactly as I configured it. Let's go ahead and add some more. So I want to start throwing in something like a list so that we can see some of our features. We'll click on lists and it'll bring up all of the different layers that are inside of our web map. So this is everything that we've been working with so far. Let's select our site selections, and you'll notice that at first, once this data loads, that it just gets the name of the site and nothing else. So we need to configure a bit what's actually going into these lists. So let's configure our list item here to actually have the meaningful demographics inside of it. This is fine for knowing exactly where it is, but let's kind of center it there in the middle and let's make it a heading so that it actually, stands out a little bit. And then let's get our key statistics inside of here. So under here, you'll find all of that attribution inside of your data layer right here. So I want my hurricane risk, and I also want that flood risk as well. So these are two of my key demographics. And then I also need that social vulnerability. So now I have the social vulnerability and these two risks in there. These are key points for decision making in these testing sites. We can also center these so that they're all lined up, but obviously this still isn't looking great. We can even add a space there so they're at least spaced out, but I really do need more here. Labels help, we can add things like hurricane risk and flood risk, but those only do so much. What I want to do here is I want to get into that arcade again. And you might have noticed that there's a button right here that allows us to enable arcade on this list. So if I click it, it'll instantly generate some return options for me. Things like text color, background color, selection text color, and we can even have attributes thrown into here. So what I want to do here is I want to do that same thing we were doing in the web map, where we were coloring that flood risk and hurricane risk based off of if it was low, medium, or high. So a quick way to do that is to throw in an if statement like this one, where we're looking at that data point for the flood risk. And once again, does it equal low? And if so, we return that color code again. So if I throw in the other ones for medium and high, and then uncomment these attributes right here, then I can actually just assign them as whatever I want. So I want my flood color to be that variable I've created for flood color. And then if I go back to my HTML down here, and then go back into this actual HTML, we just have to do exactly what we did before, where we go into here, we specify in the style that the color is going to equal the expression and then whatever attribute we decided, so the flood color right here. And that's all we're going to need in order to color that. I'll click on there, and now you can see that in each of these list items, we have for flood risk low, it's colored green, and for flood risk high, it's colored red. So I know that it's working properly. I'm going to save you guys from the rest of this boring HTML stuff and just copy and paste it in so that you can see what it looks like once we actually get some good arcade and HTML in there. So now you can see that we have a lot of coloring with our hurricane risk and flood risk, even a social distancing score that's colored appropriately. And then also that same social vulnerability, that was another one of our key statistics, is colored based off of a certain range. So we can see that 58% is also green, whereas up to 97% is obviously not good. So this is great now for actually stylizing and highlighting this key information so that our leaders can actually make the decisions that they need. So let's go ahead and click done here. And now we'll start getting into actually styling this. So you'll notice that this whole list is way too big. So all we need to do is just drag this over and all of the cards will automatically stylize as well as the base map. So now that's a little nicer. And let's start throwing in some other things, like some charts on the bottom here. So once again, let's go up to this plus sign, and we'll add a serial chart. It'll bring up that same layer list, and we'll select our counties layer. So here on this first one, we need to select what we're actually looking at. So under the category field here, let's select the county name as our category so that we can select different counties based off of their name. And then for the statistic, let's do a sum of those confirmed cases right here. And so we'll see that maximum amount of confirmed cases by each county. Now, there's obviously a lot of counties in Texas, and so there's too much here. This chart, as we can see already, it would not be very useful. And so what we can do is we can start filtering this so that we only find the counties that are the most important to us. So let's click on Add a Filter. And now I only want the counties that are greater than 15,000 cases. So let's look at that confirmed number, and then let's say greater than, and then we can just type in here 15,000. And you'll see instantly that our serial chart over here in the preview changes. So this is way more legible now. We only have, what is this, about 10 or 11 counties. So we can also sort by down here. So maybe this is a little erratic. So if we sort instead by the statistic instead of the county name, then you'll see we'll get a nice increasing chart as we go along. This is all working into that user experience. We can also go into things like the category access and value access, guides, but let's actually change the color of the series. So for confirmed cases, I want it to be a red color. We can also do things like a line instead of a bar chart or a smooth line, but let's keep with column for now. For the title here, I want to make sure that people know that what this is, especially since I put a filter in there. It would be misleading to just say that this is counties in Texas with high cases. So we need to tell our audience exactly what this is. So let's say that this is counties with more than 15,000 cases. And now that this is very clearly legible for all of our audience. Lastly, and a little tip right here, this last update text isn't very important for a lot of our widgets. It's on by default for real-time data, but if we're not working with real-time data, then we can kind of tick this off and save some screen real estate for our user. So I'll go ahead and click Done, and once again, you can see that it kind of messed with our UI a little bit. So up here, you'll notice this drag item. So if I click on this, I can drag it anywhere in our dashboard. So I could stack things. You can see right here, stacking like this puts the two widgets right there next to each other, and then we can tab through them. It's not really what I want for this though. So instead, I'm going to put it below the map here, and it'll dock it as a row. And then we can once again just drag and kind of organize it a little bit. And now we're starting to get into that territory of this is looking good. And this hasn't taken us too much time. So the next thing that I want is to actually see the number of cases in this map. So that's a great use for an indicator. And so once again, let's select our layer. We're going to do those Texas County totals again. And this is obviously not the right number for cases, so let's change that. So instead of count, we're going to do a sum of those confirmed cases. And now this is our number that we want to actually display. This is how many cases were in Texas as of, I think it was September 30th. Once again, let's check off that last update text. And this is still misleading. We need some kind of labeling or text to know what this actually is. Under these indicator options, you can put in text here, either above or below the number or right on it. So below it, I'm going to put in map view. And then in the middle here, I'm going to say cases. Great. So we can also do things like changing the color of it. So if I want this to be a red case thing or the text to be white. We can even add things once again like icons. If I want things like this biohazard symbol, you can see it adds it right next to that number. For now, let's do none and let's click done. So this is a huge indicator. So let's once again dock it next to our cases right there. So this is starting to look good, but maybe I don't want this border right here in between them. Maybe that's unnecessary for me. A little trick is that we can, while holding this, hold the shift key and it'll group these. So now I'll group them as a column and it'll kind of merge the two widgets together. So now I can kind of understand that this chart and this indicator are correlated and attached to each other. So there's two more things left that we need to do before we kind of at least beta test this dashboard. We need to link these widgets together. The widgets don't know to work together natively. So if we go into our map options and configure these, we can start adding things like map actions and layer actions. So this is something that happens when the map extent changes. We can start filtering our widgets. So let's do a filter on our indicator, list, and serial chart, everything we've added so far. And now if you'll notice, as I zoom around the map, these numbers, charts, and lists will change. I can even zoom in here, and now we just have 2 different testing sites, 5 counties, and only 226,000 cases in this map. So I also want to be able to click on this chart for something like Harris County and have the map reflect that once I click on this chart. So once again, we can go into configure, go to actions here, and then when the selection changes, we can filter our polygon layer as well as our indicator. So now when I click on Harris County, you'll see that the whole map filters so that we're just looking at Harris County and also our indicator as well. This is great for that interactivity that we need to keep people interested, right? The last part is this list. So lists have actions as well. I want to be able to, when I click on one of these, pan to that site and flash it as well, so we know exactly which one we're looking at. Once again, let's go to actions, and then you see that same when selection changes. So let's add a pan, let's add a flash, and then we'll click done. And now if I click on this Bastrop County, it'll not only pan to it, but it'll highlight it on my map and flash it, so we know exactly what we're talking about here. This is just some of the functionality that you can add in here. There's a lot more that you can do. But if you're already working on this and you were this far, you'd have a pretty great map already. So the last piece here, and this is the fun piece, is to actually style it. So here, if we click on that cog, we can get into this whole layout and the theme of the dashboard in general. Maybe we want something like a white outline for all of the elements, or maybe we want the whole dashboard background color to be, instead of black, a dark gray. There we go. Now we've just changed the whole style for our entire dashboard. You can play around with this a lot to kind of fine tune how you want it to feel, and you can have it even match a theme for your whole web map. So I hope that gave you all a good overview of how to start building your own dashboard. But maybe you don't have to start from ground zero. Our ArcGIS Solutions team already has some amazing industry templates that you can just go and download. These will give you a leg up and you can just start building from there. So go check out the solutions website to see if any of these dashboards might fit your need and your audience as well. An important point of all that I've been showing you today as well is that this has all been in the ArcGIS Dashboards beta. And so there's a lot of features in the beta that are necessary to make a really great looking modern dashboard. Right now, the ArcGIS beta is going to be around for a while until we can ensure that all current dashboards that aren't using the beta can be migrated successfully. So some of the features here include Arcade, which we've looked at a lot today. That's not available in the regular version. All URLs used in the dashboard must be HTTPS, so this is great for any of you concerned about security. CSVs and feature collections are now supported. Percentiles are a statistic type. There's some great date filters as well. If in those lists and widgets, I want to be able to look at something just from the past quarter, all I need to do is in that filter, just quickly select past quarter, and it'll instantly filter all of my data. It's really great. And then also for any of you JavaScript nerds, this is using the 4.x JavaScript API. So it adds a lot more functionality and it's way more performant compared to previous versions. Lastly, I just want to give you all some additional resources if you need them. Our ArcGIS dashboard homepage, our help documentation, the useful links blog, and even some more info on the beta are all listed here. And I encourage you all to go check it out. But mostly, I encourage you to go and actually build dashboards yourself. And the next time that you're presenting, maybe use a dashboard in there, and maybe you'll see less of those people nodding off and using their cell phones, or even in our virtual world, maybe you'll actually get some engagement over that line. So please go check it out. And now I'm going to pass it over to my peer Hannah for some ArcGIS Insights.
Thanks, Max. My name is Hannah Shumway, and I'm a solution engineer here at Esri. I've spent some time living in St. Louis, so I'm especially excited to get the chance to present today. I'm going to talk about ArcGIS Insights. So, what is ArcGIS Insights? We know that every day, analysts strive to provide policymakers with robust information to help them make decisions. ArcGIS Insights is a tool that makes it easier to apply powerful spatial and statistical analysis to your existing workflows. It's got a drag and drop interface for location-based data analysis. It can integrate disparate data sources, and it allows you to share your findings with customers and colleagues. Whether you're already an active GIS user or you're a data scientist who wants to take advantage of location data, you can unlock new knowledge from your data with ArcGIS Insights. ArcGIS Insights offers flexible deployment options. You can implement Insights as a part of ArcGIS Online, which gives you a powerful analytics environment that's fully hosted by Esri and scales automatically to meet user demand. You can also implement Insights as a part of ArcGIS Enterprise, which allows you to access ArcGIS Insights behind your firewall and directly connect to your enterprise databases. The third way that you can connect to Insights is on your desktop. Whether you have an ArcGIS Insights license with ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise, you can access Insights desktop right from your own local computer. Today, I'm going to start out by giving you a sense of how we can use Insights on the web. In this case, it'll be in our organization's ArcGIS Enterprise. And then I'm going to drill down further into my data using ArcGIS Insights Desktop before publishing out my findings into an interactive briefing created in ArcGIS Experience Builder. So let's get to it. We are in the ArcGIS Enterprise portal homepage. When I navigate to the app launcher and select Insights, it opens up. And in the homepage of Insights, I have a workbook that I've called UNHCR Data Exploration. So today, I am an analyst that's interested in worldwide refugee flows. That means that I want to understand which areas have the most vulnerable displaced populations. I want to understand how refugee flows have the potential to impact interstate relations so that I can help predict any simmering conflict, any openings for terrorist groups, or need for more American humanitarian aid in the area. And I've started this workbook already. So when we open it up, there are two data sets already loaded into the dataset pane. We've got our persons of concern data, which is from the UNHCR, that is the United Nations High Commissioner on Refugees, and it has data from 1951 to 2017 about all refugees, asylum seekers, internally displaced persons, their country of origin, and their current country of residence, as well as breakdowns about different kinds of refugees, stateless persons, etc. We also have this world countries data set that we took from the Living Atlas and imported straight into our ArcGIS Insights. And we used that to enable location on our persons of concern data set. A useful thing about ArcGIS Insights is that it allows us to enable location on any non-spatial data set that has some sort of reference back to a spatial item. So in this case, we have countries of origin and residence that we were able to connect to geographies of the world countries. And in addition to the Excel sheet that we brought in with persons of concern and the Living Atlas data from the world countries, we can also add extra data from our ArcGIS Enterprise portal, from databases that we connect to ourselves, or from our SharePoint or OneDrive. Now that we've got our lay of the land, we'll want to start our ArcGIS Insights analysis by doing some quick drag and drop on the fly aggregation. So if I select country of origin and the total population in order to quantify how many people have fled each country of origin, and I drag those into our interface, I get a couple of different options. So I can visualize it as a chart, different kinds of charts, as a table, or as a map. If I select map, as it visualizes, you'll see that the larger circles are countries that have more refugees that have fled from there, and the smaller ones have had less. And another thing that helps you guide your analysis within ArcGIS Insights is this action button in the bottom right corner of the card. When I click to open it, you'll see that it offers me several different options for tools that I could use on my current data. And if I'm not quite sure where to go next, I can find answers. So if I know the sort of question that I'm trying to ask about my data, but I don't quite know what tool might fit, ArcGIS Insights can help me with that. If I'm looking for how is it related, they can offer me these different options, like viewing a scatter plot, a chord diagram, or even a link chart to understand my data better. And you can do this with several different question options. And now that we have a quick overview of what the spatial aggregation and the answers and questions within the ArcGIS Insights interface can do, I want to take our analysis up a notch by selecting two variables along with our total population variable to create a flow map. And so to do that, we won't need this initial map anymore. So we will take stock of our three variables and then pull them in to create another map. Except this time, ArcGIS Insights creates a flow map for us. And when we open up the layer options, our nodes are country of origin and country of residence. And there's a link between them showing direction. We can create our sides nodes using parameter and change it to out degree, from out degree to in degree. And that means that it creates larger circles for those countries who have migrants from more countries seeking asylum there. The layer options pane also allows us to customize the style of our nodes and links. We can do that by clicking on a particular node and changing the color. We'll create a transparent fill color for this one and a bright blue outline. And we can do the same thing with the links themselves, changing the color, say, to a sort of medium gray. Now that we have these years worth of links visualized in our map, we might want to drill down a little more. We'll break down the top countries of origin for refugees, and we'll do that using a column chart. We'll drag in and choose column chart as the type of chart that we want to use for visualization. When it renders, all of our countries now have a total population of persons of concern that found their origin in the particular country. But initially, this is a lot of countries. So we might want to filter this down a bit. With the card filter, a new capability within ArcGIS Insights 2020.3 is to allow us to filter an n number of records with the highest or lowest value. This will be interesting for us here, as we might be interested in knowing which countries have had the most refugees leave from there. So we'll change it to 10 and apply it. And as it renders it, you can see immediately that it's much easier to read. And we can even sort to have highest to lowest or lowest to highest if we'd like. And all we've created something informative, but we can do the same thing with the country of residence variable as well to get situational awareness on where refugees are going when they flee these countries. And so we'll bring those in to their own chart, except this time we'll choose a bubble chart. And there are a ton of bubbles there, so again, we're going to want to filter down by the top 10 records. And a lot more digestible for us to read here. And we'll make sure when we're creating these cards to select Enable Cross Filters in all of 3 of our cards. And that's so that when we filter down in one card, like say we're interested in Afghanistan, the other elements will filter down to tell me, for those refugees whose country of origin was Afghanistan, where are the top places that they now reside? And that's in both map format and in the bubble chart. And now that we've created an overarching interactive visualization, there are still a lot of links that are involved here, and there's more than 60 years worth of data. So it might be difficult for us to parse through this if we're really trying to create a situational awareness product about a more recent state of refugees in the world. So let's use a predefined filter from the top right corner to filter by year. So we'll add a filter. We'll choose year as the filter that we want to use. And we can even configure so that you can select your year from a drop-down. You can say that the initial year we see here, 1951, there's not very much data on it. But if we fast forward a little to 2017, we have a lot more informative data set about the top countries of origin in 2017 and the top countries of residence where folks have fled to. And if we filter down, say with Syria, the most common country of origin, we can notice that the most common country of residence for Syrian refugees, besides internally displaced persons who have stayed in Syria, is Turkey. I might want to get a more in-depth look at the refugee situation there. But before I do that, I'm going to package up the cards right here in this interface so that we can use them for a future report. So if I unselect here, I can notice that this is currently named Card 1, but I can name it Refugee Flow Map. This is our top origin countries. So I'll say top origin countries for refugees. And these are our destination countries or our countries of residence. So I'll say top residence countries. And we'll say year filter for this card. And you can create these sort of customizations that allow your report to look very polished when you finish it up. So now that I have this overview world refugee flow map and top origin and residence countries ready, I think that I am going to use ArcGIS Insights on desktop to look more in depth at Turkey, which was that top residence country for refugees from Syria. And so you might ask, why am I thinking about ArcGIS Insights desktop here instead of just regular old Insights on the web? Well, desktop is a good tool for the job here because not only can it run disconnected from the internet, but it can connect directly into a relational database of my choice. I can leverage data sources that are local to my computer or that are proprietary to my team that I might not be able to share out to a wide customer base. or data sets that might not be able to be hosted in an enterprise portal in their raw state. And I can even connect into my local Python or R environments for coding. With that, we're going to open up ArcGIS Insights desktop. And you can see immediately that the interface here is very similar to the ArcGIS Insights on Enterprise or ArcGIS Insights on ArcGIS Online. And it's meant to be that way so that you can switch between them seamlessly. And so we'll open up our Turkey Refugees workbook. As it loads here, you'll see that we've already brought in a couple of data sources from our organization, both UNHCR refugee settlements by province and violent events from the Armed Conflicts Location and Event Data Project, or ACLED. We've even visualized the top 5 provinces for refugee settlements in a bubble chart. In order to better contextualize where the refugee or where the violent events on the bottom here are happening, I'd like to see if those violent events are related to the total population of a province. I might expect them to be. A scatter plot might be a good fit for figuring this out. The outliers then especially will tell me which provinces have more or less violent events than we might expect based on their population. So then I'll be able to detect flashpoints and whether those flashpoints might affect or be related to refugees nearby. So I'll select the 2017 total population and the count of violent events variables. And you'll notice that these are both numeric variables, and that's why they'll work in a scatter plot. And I'll drag them into their very own new card as a scatter plot. And from here, we can manipulate the style of these points. And that's actually a new feature within ArcGIS Insights 2020.3 to be able to change the symbol size of particular dots within a scatter plot and customize their color, which I'll do here. We might also be interested in coloring each of the dots by the name of the province that they represent, so that when I roll over a particular dot, I'll be able to see the name of the province for reference. And we can even display some statistics and generate those interactively right from ArcGIS Insights. So let's say I think that these two variables, 2017 total population and count of violent events from ACLED, might have a linear relationship. I can plot what that would look like, and it turns out that the two variables do seem to be associated with a linear association. And our R squared value is actually rather high. It's at 0.65. And there aren't even too many outliers, but we can then identify particular points that are outliers and select them to filter the rest of the data and figure out more about why they might be an outlier. For example, the Diyarbakir province. And now that we have this basic data set, we can take the analysis even a step further by integrating a Python script into our interface. If we wanted to write a script from scratch, we just have to open either a Python or R kernel from the scripting button in the top right corner of the page. It's just like a Jupyter Notebook environment where we can interactively write code here. We can import packages like the common package NumPy. We can do calculations like 1 plus 3. And we can even drag and drop variables or datasets from the Insights Datasets pane, like violent events by province. Can bring it in, and it will automatically render a table for us based on the attribute table of violent events by province. And we can use that for further analysis with Python. For our purposes here, I've already prepared a simple script that will scrape, condition, and visualize data from the European Council on Refugees and Exiles website. And that contains the most recent numbers on refugees as a share of total population by province. And you can see this is just 6 chunks of code. And the only Python package I need here is pandas, which is the popular package for dealing with tabular data in Python. When we run the code, it outputs a formatted table as well as a bar chart with our data. With a click, we select it, and we can create a card for our Insights report with that information, both the table and the chart. You can see it's already added to our site. We can do a little bit of formatting of it to make it suitable for reporting out to our colleagues and to customers, just to make sure we can see all of the data that's available in these cards, because it is good data. Almost there. Great. And with that, we can see here that the province of Kilis has a whopping 80% of its total population composed of Syrian refugees, which, as shown on the chart, is far more than any other province in Turkey. We may want to keep an eye on this province to ensure that they have enough resources and humanitarian aid to accommodate so many refugees. With that, we're ready to share out our results as a report. ArcGIS Insights lets you publish analysis results, embed them in web pages, and to make them easily accessible on any device. When you perform your analysis, the steps are recorded so that anyone can rerun, revisit, or reuse your workflow. This can hook into the portal environment for your organization too. To view the workflow, we'll click on the Analysis View button in the top right. And that takes us to a diagram that might be familiar if you've used Model Builder within ArcGIS Pro. It takes us through all of the steps that we used in order to create our Insights page so that we can replicate it or share it as a model. If we want to share out our results as an interactive report page, we'll go back to the page view of our report, and we'll configure it as we want it to appear in our final report. And we can then go to Share As. You can go to Share As in the Pages menu and add some different metadata, such as a couple of tags, who we want to share it with. In this case, it will be our whole organization. And update our shared page that we created earlier. When it's published, we can go to view the standalone report, and we can also embed the report into a web experience for briefing purposes. So if I go over to our briefing, that allows us to view the overview of the worldwide refugee situation first. And note that we can still interact with this just as if it was in our Insights workbook. And we can also navigate to one of the highlighted countries of our choice. And in this case, these are all countries that are top destination or residence countries for refugees seeking asylum. So since we've been focusing on Turkey, I'll navigate to our Turkey detail page. And we can view and interact with this just as we did when we were looking at it on our desktop. Excellent. And so now that you've gotten a taste of how ArcGIS Insights can work, I'll pop back to our PowerPoint for a summary. So, in conclusion, ArcGIS Insights can enable analysts to perform advanced spatial and statistical data analysis from an approachable interface. It allows them to bring different data sources together into a highly informative output, and it allows analysts to publish their results to bring value to their colleagues and customers.